Supercup racing then. They've already had 2 races this weekend. One yesterday, as mentioned, won by James Kellett, but the AM category was in the hands of Darren Leung, and in the older cars, Luke Reed was the man to beat in car 26, finishing 8th overall. Earlier today, Kellett getting that 7th victory, that record-breaking victory in a row. But I think G55 is going to be as intense as it has been for years, really. Luke Reed's definitely the man to beat there. Yeah,
there'll be no change there, I'm sure. It's always a fantastic spectacle. And yeah, it's a great championship, and I do like the anomalies in it. You know, you've got different regulations and different cars, and it's cracking to see.
Well, I remember the overlap in the early days of the G55 when we had the G50 Cup as well. So this is the crossover, in a sense, between the 2 types of cars. I'll remind you, the G56s have 500 brake horsepower. They carry a 6.2 litre V8 in the front of these cars. Sound absolutely glorious around here, but all of that power is not necessarily a good thing in the early part of a 20-minute race concerning the tyres. That's your grid. We're about to go racing for the Miller's Oils Ginetta GT4 Supercup Championship. Round 8 live here from Knockhill, and a good getaway for Henry Dawes, but actually Tom Empson is possibly slightly better as well. Now closing the door behind Aston Millar. Can he squeeze ahead of Empson? Not quite. So Empson in 2nd place.
In the background there was a start line accident, so that did take out a couple of cars. There was cars off to the left and there was cars off to the right, and that's Conor Garlick that was off there.
Yeah, and all sorts of chaos coming through Duffers Dip as well. Debris all over the road at McIntyre's. One of the cars involved is James Townsend in the 24 car. He's had a big old biff on the rear.
That's a big crash, and that will be the doctor stopping there to see if he's okay. Thumbs up from the marshal. But look at the fight for the lead as they're going to the safety car boards.
Tom Empson to the right of your shot, and on the inside it's Henry Dawes. Dawes massively defensive. Is there a change behind as well? No, Aston Millar staying ahead of James Kellett. Safety car, has everybody seen them? Tom Empson hasn't. They all need to slow up here as much as they can. I hate these moments, Paul, but they have, thankfully, all seen the safety car boards.
Yeah, they've got onboard electronics to tell them that there's certain flags out. You'll see at the top of that car, there's a black aerial. There's a black aerial on the top, and the red flag comes out.
Yep.
So there's an aerial in the car that will tell them what flags are being waved and what lights are being shown. The only thing is, when you're flat out trying to overtake someone, straight into the pit lane. Not all of them, because they'd gone past, hadn't they? So that is a lot of them. Or have they been directed and stopped? No, there you go. The rest of them are there.
I suppose it depends on how serious the start line incident that you saw. Is there debris over the road there, and therefore have the marshals guided them into pit lane, because that's the safer place to go. So we're concentrating obviously on the race lead. It was a good getaway for Dawes, but further back, Paul, in the shot. Yes.
That was
somebody's turned sideways. I couldn't spot who it was from that distance, and then this is the aftermath.
Yeah. Someone had been turned. That was Conor Garlick going backwards through the gravel trap. Then the rest of them in cars that have just got bits everywhere. Right rear broken on that number 77 by the looks of it, and then everyone just clambers all over each other. And I think that's Luke War, is it? Who is not that? Sorry, that is James Townsend. There was someone else involved in that.
Yeah, who made contact with the rear of James Townsend and then was leaving the road later on. Let's just have a look.
I think it's... Luke Wall.
That is Luke, you're right.
Fires into him, and then you can see that's Nick Halstead in the 40.
On the exit of McIntyre's, because he'd already shortcut that corner as well. That feels like it's like the ripple effect from what happened on the main start-finish, extending beyond Duffers Dip and all the way to McIntyre's.
Yeah, there was
all the same accident.
A lot going on, wasn't there? I think it was all kicking off. I think someone's come round the other side and tagged them, so yeah, not good.
Well, yeah, the... car is going to be stretchered away, and this will obviously take a bit of time to be recovered.
Yeah, so what you can see is there, that weight bar there, you can see that blue bar that's on the top of the car. They have 2 points where they can lift the car, and it's dead center with gravity, but they have to now put these 2 pieces of rope on the front because the V8 is heavier than the old car.
Yes.
So that makes the front dive, and that's why we've got straps at the front as well, which you wouldn't see on any other car. They'll just pick it up with them 2 points.
Yeah. But those measurements are carefully selected, measured out, and then that point where it pivots helps the car being recovered very quickly indeed. So this has all been thought about well in advance. They're quite modular, these cars, as well, and I'd be confident if there was another race today that James Townsend could take part in that. But unfortunately, they're going to have to take it back to their headquarters in the interval between now and Snetterton and tape it up in time for that round.
That's a big hit, you know that. That really has twisted the rear of that car. I know you know, these cars are quite lightweight for the size of them. You know, there's a lot of fiberglass and stuff, but it looks like it's took quite a big hit. Luke Waugh it was that was into the side of that. He was unsighted and had nowhere to go.
Yeah, and I wonder whether James was already in part of a moment and then he's got slapped from the rear and that's chucked him into even more of a slide. A lot of it was down to avoiding action, actually, and Nick Holstead, who we saw dive to the grass, but then as he hits the tarmac again, just nerfed him into a spin as well. There's just one thing after another, like a domino rally, unfortunately, and we're left with far fewer cars for the restart. It will be, well, a full restart in the sense that we use the same grid, but no longer a 20-minute race. 15 minutes is what we're hearing for the restarted amount.
Yeah, such a shame that, isn't it? But like I think you were saying, it's all started early doors on the start line, and then that has had that effect, because when you're starting, if you look in the mirrors and can see cars everywhere, it can put you off. So what has gone on at the rear? I'm looking at the rear, looking at the rear, looking at the rear. Now someone, where does that car get? Oh, okay, right. That's one car into the other two, isn't it?
Yep.
And that was quite a big hit, and you're probably up to fourth gear then.
Yeah, I'm wondering whether it's James Taylor and Mike Brown who were ahead of James Townsend, who has then needed to be recovered. It were two cars on the left-hand side of the grid, creeping through shot. One or two then escaped. Definitely Luke Waugh into the back of the 24 of James Townsend.
Yeah, it was. There was a lot going on there, wasn't there? So yeah, I'm just glad that hopefully we can get this circuit cleared and we can get underway. We'll find out if everybody is okay, because there was a lot of drivers involved in that.
Yeah, of course, and you know, impacts that drivers won't be set for, won't be prepared for either. So we'll allow the marshals to continue to clear up the track down at McIntyre's, and we'll be back with a restart for the Miller's Oil Ginetta GT4 Super Cup right after this.
Obviously, I had to.
After a red flag for the first attempt at the Miller's Oils Ginetta GT4 Super Cup Championship, their third race of the weekend, we are in that pause now whilst the grid is reassembled. I don't like the look, Paul O'Neill, of the gaps on the grid. That's all the cars that can't take the restart.
Yeah, a lot of cars there were involved. It was a lot of concertina in, and yeah, it didn't end well, did it? There was a lot going on from the start line down to turn 2. But yeah, very slow corner down there, but when you're having to start on coldish tyres and you've got curbs to hit and you're trying not to, you know, have wheels spinning and all that, it's pretty difficult, mate.
Thanks to Simon Pace, who's on duty this weekend, as he has been all season on Ginetta PR duties. He's managed to identify, because we've struggled, frankly, which cars were involved at the start line incident. So Josh Poulane, who started 11th, has clashed with Mike Brown, 12th. That's meant that Brown goes across the front of the nose of Poulane and collected Conor Garlick, who was just tucked in behind. So, yeah. So Conor Garlick was actually ahead, but maybe he didn't get away too well, so Garlick's car's been damaged too. Then there was this secondary incident, as we've described, James Townsend spinning at the bottom of the hill and was collected by Luke Waugh.
Yeah, definitely, and there's a few cars that are going to come out the pit lane as well by the look of it when this is all done.
Okay, well that's good news, because there are a few too many gaps for my liking on the grid a little further back. What we were denied, of course, was enjoying Henry Dawes versus Tom Empson. And you're right, there's a big queue waiting to join into this now shortened race to 15 minutes. Blake Anglis right at the front, and he's ahead of Nick Holstead, so that's good. Nick went to the grass, he spun, I thought he was out, but he can rejoin.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, but in the background I did notice Darren Leung, I think it is, in the 22, who's stopped and out of his car in the background of that last shot in the pit lane. He had a problem on the start line as well, and that's him out. There's Big Dazza, top man is Dazza. Yeah, that's a real shame, because I tell you what, it's a real shame that he's not been able to show his pace in the live race, because that boy has been racing for hardly any time and he is seriously quick, takes it proper seriously. So really, really good to see him. Pretty quick in this. He had a really good result in the last race, but unfortunately he's got something wrong with the car there.
Yeah, Darren finished yesterday, won his class actually in the AM part for the newer cars, the 6.2 litre V8 cars. So he finished 5th on the road and therefore winning the class, 2nd earlier on today. It's just a shame that he can't boost that with another good points score, because he's trying to close in on Wes Pearce for Brakel Racing, who leads the G56 amateur class.
So they're going to be starting from the pit lane then?
Yes.
Them gaps do not look good, do they? But it's so difficult when there's gaps and you have to line up with the gaps because you can be out of position.
Yeah, because you haven't worked out where you necessarily need to be. Green flag at the back. We're going to have another attempt at this then. 15 minutes of Ginetta racing, and we're underway again for round 8 of the championship, but not getting away at all well is the pole man Henry Dawes, and Tom Empson says, I'm not going to be asked twice here, and slots across the nose of Henry immediately into the lead. Did James Kellett get the jump on Aston Miller as the rest of the throng join them from the pit lane? There's about 5 cars that will pop up at Duffers Dip, and they'll be in the competition as well.
Yeah, such a shame though, because there's going to be big gaps, isn't there? Which is a real pain. But I'll tell you what, we've got a good race on the front. Oh, who's that? Is that Empson?
Yes, from the race lead. So we got a really good getaway, and all of a sudden the car has no power. Now, is that a problem because the car has started a race, it's then stopped, and you've got all the heat soak, and race cars never like to be started again without some attention. So we've lost Tom Empson again. They're dropping like flies here, Paul. Aston Miller leading from James Kellett.
Kellett started P4. We've got to go back to Kellett, because I'm telling you now, he is on. He is flashing the lights. That's going to be another safety car, because is it in the way? But look at Kellett. Kellett wants this lead, and I tell you what, starting from P4, it's not took him a long time. Miller is flat out, but he's not going to hold on for too much longer. Look at the rear of the car squirreling, and he's going to set him up. Can he get underneath? No. Brilliant driving from Miller.
Yeah, deliberately slow coming out of McIntyre's. That slowed up Kellett, and there is a safety car, you're quite right, to mean that that car, Tom Empson's machine, needs to be recovered. So James Kellett, that's going to help out actually those that have joined from the pit lane. You mentioned the gap for the 5 or so that have rejoined in a delayed fashion, but all of that gap back to Leung and Brown and Townsend will condense nicely now.
Wowzers! Well, that was pretty special. That was that. I tell you what, he's getting his breath a bit, isn't he, old Miller? He's well impressive to hold off that attack, because Kellett was not hanging about.
Well, if he's going to win this race, it's going to have to do it the real hard way, because James Kellett is so experienced in winning races. They've only been 7 this year, and he's been top of the podium for each. This is quite further back down the pack in the Wolf Motorsport car of Luke Reed, I reckon, who's already taken a couple of class victories this weekend. That was a good getaway on the uphill start.
That red light on his dashboard saying fuel low, so he must have some kind of surge, or maybe, I hope he filled it with fuel. It's probably a pressure sensor. Colin White in front there in the black and turquoise flashed car. And let's see how he gets through the chicane. Listen to this old school V6. Listen to that. Oh, he's just got
Look out for Tom Empson. Oh, that's the car that was slowing from the race lead, and he had very little warning, Luke Reed, that Tom was there.
Yeah, look at this. So Kellett in the 6, Millar in the 7, and the black and white car slow, as you rightly said, tried to cut him off. I mean, stopped it on the apex. Nothing wrong with that, but you do sometimes get a bit of a turnaround by the car behind you.
So weaving to try and maintain, or in fact build up, tyre temperature. They've hardly had a chance to do that, and we'll have at least one more lap behind the safety car. I think the decision here from the marshals, if Tom Empson's car can't go any further, is just to leave it there, get it into a vaguely safe position. The problem is you can just see the curb in the bottom left of shot. That's still very close to the edge of the racetrack.
No, they're going to move that. If you have a moment coming out the chicane and you collect that car, it ain't good. So
no.
Yeah, Knockhill and the guys doing the best thing possible, which is get that tow hook on. They're doing it as quick as they can and get that pulled out the way to a safe place, probably a bit further round the corner. You can't really leave it there. I'm glad to see them moving it.
It's uphill there, and I appreciate, you know, all the marshal power in the world might not be able to move that. I just wonder whether something might have seized on Tom's car to eliminate him from the race. Very gravelly moment coming out of the final corner there for the car ahead. That was Conor Garlick, I reckon, just ahead of Poulin, who was rather largely involved in the 2 separate incidents that happened at the start of the initial race for round 8.
They might pull this all the way to the last corner and stick it at the hairpin, so He'll be out of the way whatever happens. On board with Luke Reed, but the difference in the class of cars is the V6 in Luke's car and the V8 in the more powerful G56 is completely different driving styles. They look the same, the cars, but they really aren't. I mean, I speak to a lot of the V8 drivers up the front, and they just say how much you can energise the tyres by driving a bit too hard, and it becomes a problem. That's took a 90 right before the hairpin, so they are getting well out the way. Exceptional work.
At least all four wheels are rotating on Tom Empson's car. As I say, I wonder whether something had seized in the drivetrain, but it's a puzzle to me as to why that car just suddenly stopped, other than the fact that it's had to do a race start, then everything stopped, then you're asking a bit more of the race car as well. It's been a busy weekend for everybody, including the machinery.
Yeah, you've got to remember, lights are on the safety car, so we're going to be racing in a second, but you've got to remember, these, you know, the race cars are thoroughbreds. They're not made to poodle about and stop and start. They just want to be racing, and listen to them V8s. They're so good. If we were back on board with the V6 of Luke Reed, but yeah, they're just thoroughbreds, and they just want to rev and they just want to drive hard. So yeah,
and you push like crazy on the opening lap, but for them to shut the thing off, and then, you know, things can go wrong. That will be in the minds, I'm sure, of one or two others on this race, with Aston Miller already going. So before he got to the braking area proper of the hairpin, he opened up a little bit of a gap. James Kellett, though, will have a response to that, I'm sure. The one that's caught napping a little bit is Wes Pearce in that half and half blue and pink car, running in the lead of the AM G56 class. Here comes Kellett from a long way back, and immediately the door is slammed in his face.
That's it. It's on now. He's done it. He's got it done. And Millar come right across the front of him. I tell you what, you've got to go and thank Millar. You've got to go and thank James Kellett for not turning you around, Millar, because that was nearly game over. And he's got to be careful here, Kellett, because it's nice to see that he actually does want to have this win, does Millar.
So Wes Pearce in the fight now for an overall podium, very definitely, from one side of the road to the other, using plenty of that green concrete as well. So dusty offline. Kellett was almost fully committed, and he is fully committed. There's contact. That nerves Aston Miller into a spin. Kellett to the race lead, but big questions as to how he did it. Yeah,
there will be big questions. This could be maybe the first non-win for Kellett, because on looking at it, let's have a look again as they're coming down to the hairpin. So Aston Miller in the lead in the 7 car. Does he turn across the front of him? Does he give him no? Oh, he does. I'm not even going to comment on that.
No.
Because that's going to be looked at, because to me that looked a bit 50-50. Difficult one, that, mate. I'll leave it there.
A horrible scream of tortured Michelin tyres as well across the road surface at Taylor's. You choose your line. I suppose you can just let your head defend, but Kellett was already fully committed. It's not our decision, thankfully.
Yeah, Millar is going to say, hang on a minute, mate. You hit the back of me, and all Kellett's going to say is, you turned across the front of me in the brake zone, so what do you want me to do? So I can see it from both sides, but that's going to be a difficult one. But look now, Pearce in 2nd place. He is lit. I mean, he's going to struggle to catch Kellett, but he is oversteering everywhere.
What this does provide is a moment in the sunshine as it really beats down here at Knockhill for those in the AM division of the G56 cars, because Colin White is on for an overall podium now as well.
Oh no!
And that's more drama for Aston Miller, who's off the road and out of the race. That's got to be a result of the contact at the hairpin.
Has he broke a right rear? There must be damage at the right rear of that car. He goes straight over to the right rear, looks over. I tell you, he is going to be fuming.
It was all going very sweetly indeed. So do not qualify for the front 2 rows of the grid. In Ginetta's is the rule, because Henry Dawes is out of the race, Tom Empson is out of the race. Now Aston Miller, a retirement too, turning right through that cut through. They really are dropping like flies here, Paul. Who's that?
Henry Dawes in the 58, gone.
From pole position in this race, remember. And 58 now stopping virtually in the same position as Tom Empson did a little earlier on.
Oh, what's go...
And now Nick Halstead has spun on the exit of the hairpin too, and goes the wrong way down the racetrack. Never like to see this either, looking for a turning circle. Thankfully, no one else coming in the opposing direction.
Yeah.
But Clarks do not like that sort of behaviour either. So, yeah, there may be more to follow regarding that. 6 minutes to go. We are staying without a safety car for the time being, despite the stranded Henry Dawes car. That's how Nick ended up there. Good avoiding driving from those around.
Yeah, just too much throttle. The 40 on the power now. As it comes over that crest, the rear goes light at the hairpin. It's it'll be a first or second gear corner in that. But there's our leader, James Kellett. He is just getting on with it, and you can tell now he looks like he's stroking it home, doesn't he? He's just to give you an idea, his best lap of 50.3 is then the next best lap is a 51.5. He's 1.2 seconds quicker than anybody else.
Reading his results on paper, you would say he's had it all his own way at Knockhill this weekend, but it was a win by only 1.1 seconds yesterday, only 0.3 of a second earlier on today. It's already nearly 5 back to Wes Pearce. Meanwhile, in G55, this is the scrap in the Pro division for the older cars.
Yeah, Luke Reed, our camera car, that 26 that's in front there. This is a good old battle, isn't it? These guys are having it. So Taylor is trying to hunt him down. Let's see what he can get. So on board, he's locked the rears up on the downshift. Look at the car. It's a first gear corner in the 55. He's up to second now, up to third as he comes. Look at this. They go over and over that hill, and the cars go so light. There's another car in the background in the gravel. Nobody wants to finish this race.
It seems like it, doesn't it? It is a matter of survival, and yeah, to be honest, the screen that I look at, white names mean they're still in the race, but the yellow names are almost outnumbering them. Those are the ones that are no longer competing. Nick Halstead thankfully still is, so we've got 11 runners still in the race. Blake Anglis, who started from the pit lane, remember, could get a podium here in Pro within G55.
Hey, we're all getting excited here about Colin White in the 78 having an overall podium. Forget about that, mate. He's closing down on second place overall. He could win this.
He could win the race, yeah, because James Kellett might be susceptible to the mechanical dramas that others have had, like Tom Empson and Henry Dawes.
He's having it. He's half a second quicker. Go on, the Colin White. Me granddad's on fire.
4 minutes to go. Got to find a way through, and the G55s are hammer and tong at it as well. Not quite elbows out yet for Luke Reed and Taylor behind, but James Taylor trying to force the error, whereas James Kellett nearly 8 seconds to the good now. He's in a race completely on his own.
He is, but Colin White is green again in the next sector. Oh, and there's the two boys. Taylor into the side there of Reed, and yeah, that was our onboard car. Let's see, is there anything else that happens? Luke Reed on board. So sorry, I thought this was a replay. So this is Luke Reed, and he is absolutely having a nightmare trying to fend off Taylor behind.
I'm trying to work out from the massive mirror at the top of your shot where exactly Taylor's car is. It's bright white, so it's certainly not easy to miss. And didn't get the overlap this time. Here comes the CWS engineering car and Colin White, third overall, second in the AM category in G56. He will be loving these cars, by the way. He's driven so many V8s through the years, and I'm sure will have been counting down to the fact that he could get his hands on a brand new G56. Wes Pearce, massive pressure on his shoulders here. Mate,
this is outstanding stuff. Colin White, I am one of his biggest fans, and I love this because he's going to get an overall podium. He ain't bothered about that, mate. He wants that P2, and I think that is fantastic for a man of his age driving the drive of his life. Brilliant.
Goes a little deep into the hairpin, but that means he can tuck back neat and tidily on the way out of the hairpin, applying the power more readily than Wes Pearce, who's already taken a class victory earlier on today. We could have, if Colin could get through, 3 different winners in 3 different races in G56 AM, but Colin White needs to find that opportunity to get by. I would say of the 2 cars, he does look marginally faster. Although looking at the fastest laps so far, it is Pearce who's got the edge. There's some damage from the front of James Kellett's car, and that is with the skirmish with Aston Miller, which eventually put Miller out of the race, of course. So it's a crack, isn't there, in the front left corner of that splitter.
It's not that bad. It's not that bad. That won't be a problem, that. But honestly, I just can't believe Colin White. It's immense. But well, Kellett, who's leading, has just gone purple again in sector 1. I mean, the lad is just flexing his muscles. But this is the battle for me. Look at this. So it looks like it's just a bit more than it was. So Pearce now is just stretching his legs a bit. But Colin White, this man was born, Colin White, in the CWS car, was born on the 27th of September, 1956. Right. My maths ain't so good, but that fella's old, and he's good.
1956 in a G56. You see, it was a home calling for Colin White to get his hands on one of these brand new cars. And heading now into Clark's corner with some definite pressure on for Wes Pearce, but he's matching it at this stage. Also, James Taylor looking for a way by at every corner of the Knockhill circuit to Luke Reed, who's been a double class winner to this point in the Wolf Motorsport car. And James Taylor, well, Robbins Racing, I suppose, on the start-finish straight, they were side to side, but that will just be overlooked, I'm sure, by those from officialdom. If it gets a bit more serious, they might have to step in. 30 seconds left on the clock. Kellett's already onto his 16th lap.
Yeah, Kellett, like I say, he just needs to stroke it on. I tell you what he needs to do is stay off the curbs. If he wants to win this race, you'll see the attrition in this race alone. You've got to just drive it home. It's absolutely fine, but you can get bored as a driver and you can lose your rhythm. And if you slow down too much, you will lose your rhythm and you'll end up in the gravel trap by accident.
Well, fortunately for him, there's only 2 seconds left on the clock, so I don't know whether he backed off at all on that final lap, but the checker is shown at the end of 16 laps, and it is another win, 8 in a row now for James Kellett here at Knockhill. A very dominant display too, but let's quite rightly put the spotlight on the AM division in G56. These two runners, a class victory and a second place for Pearce and for Colin White respectively. Luke Reed has hung on as well in the older cars to take a pro win in G55s.
Good lad, that's absolutely brilliant stuff, and it's not over yet, is it? Connor Garlick there and Josh Poulain as well coming across the line, so proper stuff there all the way through the field.
But the big story really from this race is the high rate of attrition and the number of retirees, either in that start line incident which caused the red flag, or indeed mechanical dramas for people strong in the Pro Championship like Tom Empson and like Aston Miller.
Yeah.
So the championship's been given a bit of a shake-up there in terms of the second place runners in Pro, but Kellett just continues to dominate.
Kellett's that good, he's just done another lap.
Ooh, now sometimes that's a bit of a hot topic as well, isn't it?
I think he's embarrassed about how many times he's won.
Yeah, so he has to, you know, maybe the stewards have said you'll need to do more laps to make sure that you've taken the race win in this affair, but that's the clash. That's the bigger dark cloud above James Kellett's head for me, because that's going to be looked at later on tonight.
I would like to hear his thoughts on that. I think that Louise has got to ask him, did he come across him too early?
Well, here's confirmation of the result. James Kellett, another victory in the pro class of G56 for Roslin Gold Racing by Century Motorsport. Wes Pearce is a class winner in the amateur division for the Newark cars. Colin White came perilously close to a second place overall, but he'll still take a podium. In fact, it'll be 2 trophies because of that. Luke Reed wins the G55 pro class for Wolf Motorsport after a hard-fought battle with James Taylor. Blake Anglis from the pit lane, remember, to 3rd step in G55s. Josh Poulain, Connor Garlick, Daniel Morris and Ian Duggan in 10th. Then it was Nick Halstead after a momentous race, actually. He had a couple of spins along the way. Henry Dawes, unfortunately, his car gave up, having needed to restart for a second time around. Same story for Aston Miller after that contact with the race winner. Tom Empson, who started from the front row, was a retirement. Darren Leung, Mike Brown, James Townsend and Luke Waugh did not get to the finish. And some of the wounded cars are in fact still being recovered back to pit lane.
That's like my mates bringing a Domino's round that, because it's that big.
It takes a couple of vans, I reckon, and they need to be pushed along the way. Yeah, I've seen your Domino's order through the years.
That's a man who's not happy.
Certainly Aston Miller, yeah, times to reflect upon, well, what might have been. I did say when he was leading the race, it was a challenge because he had the guy so dominant in the championship, James Kellett, to try and fend off. But we never like to see contact, particularly when it's for a race lead, and nerfing him into the spin. Whether it was that contact or whether it was similar mechanical